Hello, my name's Gavin, this is Genre Books, and I think I've got a bit of whiplash this week, not just from finishing 6 books, but also from the hard turn I've made from cozy trash to apocalyptic trash. This has been week 3 of Garbaugust, the Booktube event created by Criminoli and co-hosted by all the people I have listed below. This is the event where we read trash literature, or literature described by some people as trash. There are 4 weekly prompts. This week has been cozy trash, so I started right outside of my comfort zone, which is not normally cozy, and I read Magical Blend by Kennedy Lane. This helped me with my Garbingo card with the Cosy Cat Mystery for Alice box ticked off. As you can see, at the end of week 3, the Garbingo card is looking mostly filled. This puts me in good stead for the coming week. But Magical Blend, a Cosy Cat mystery, or certainly a mystery which is cozy and has a cat in it, so I think it fulfills all the criteria. This book, I'll come out and say it was not for me. I was quite worried at the beginning. I had some misgivings about the writing style, and at the end of the book I still not 100% on board. But in the very first chapter or 2, our main character and narrator, Raven Marigold, kept comparing people, places and experiences to things which were just completely outside my frame of reference. If something is described as like a Hallmark Channel Christmas movie, I know what one of those is, but I've never seen one, so I just have my own prejudice about what one of those is, and I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to think that was a good thing or a bad thing. But that was quickly followed by a reference to a television show I've never seen and never heard of. So saying A is like B is no good to me if I don't know what B is. So when I say something is not for me, that's not a criticism per se, it just means I cannot form that connection. And I was worried at that early stage in the book that I really wasn't going to enjoy this at all. But the book was saved by the introduction of a telepathic, sarcastic, magical, possibly imaginary cat. A familiar of a witch that has died, who should have passed on alongside the witch, but was told and given instructions to stay back. It has an identity crisis, it has memory loss, and is by far the most entertaining character in the book. I don't think I'll be returning to this series or possibly Cozy Mysteries anytime soon. But I'm just not the person this kind of book is aimed at. And consequently, I'm not the person you need to review this book. Kennedy Lane has put several books out a year in a number of different series to popular acclaim and lots of reviews and lots of sales. So I don't think anything I would say would move the dial one way or another. The next book I read helped me complete the novel by a celeb square on the Garbingo card. It was Beam Ends by Errol Flynn. I had no idea what to expect from this. This is Flynn's only novel. It's a sort of semi-autobiographical novel. He wrote a fair amount of non-fiction or sort of diaries and memoirs. But I had no idea what to expect from this book. And it's not bad, but not an awful lot happens. It is fairly episodic. It is picaresque. There are some character studies which are quite fun. But it, in general, is just an awful lot of debauchery on a sailing trip up the eastern coast of Australia from Sydney to, I think, Cairns, and then across to New Guinea. So, sailing, drinking, gambling, escapades with women. I suppose I could well have expected that from Errol Flynn. I don't know what else I would have expected. I think maybe the problem here is it is too semi-autobiographical. If there had been a little bit more invention put in, a little bit more of a narrative to get your teeth into, it would have read less like a sort of a discounted Ernest Hemingway. Nonetheless, the writing style itself can have flashes of brilliance, but I think I would find it hard to recommend it as a read. I also completed the youthful squares of the Garbaugust card this week. Middle grade trash and young adult trash. Again, things I don't normally read. And for young adult trash, I borrowed a book from my son. He's a young adult. This is my first experience of a light novel. A light novel is a fairly short novel which is not manga but has occasional manga style pictures, and they occur, I think, less in the book than I was expecting, but I think possibly these books are written almost as an advertisement or a treatment of an anime series that the author is hoping to get made. And the author, Asato, was successful in the case of 86. The number 86 refers to a class of person, someone who lives in District 86, who the authorities have deemed to be non-people. So there is pure racism at play in this, I think it's called the Magnolia Republic. Yes, the Republic of San Magnolia. There are some interesting pieces in this book. The science fiction is not groundbreaking, but it is pretty exciting all the way through. A war is being fought, and it is being fought between a army of drones which has, we believe, destroyed the country that had created the drones, and was taking on this Republic of San Magnolia. San Magnolia responds with his own drone army, but because they don't have the drone artificial intelligence, simply put people from the 86th region in those machines and tell them to fight, so that they can say, with using their own definitions of people, that once a battle has finished, no people on our side were killed, because we don't view these people as such. So the science fiction, interesting enough, but not groundbreaking. The dialogue, like a lot of manga or anime, is frequently overwrought and melodramatic, overblown. But this is a read you can absolutely breeze through, and I have certainly read worse books this month. A future war against an army of drones isn't quite cozy, but the next book, I think, qualifies a little bit more. This was my middle grade trash, and I've gone back to 1867 with Ragged Dick, or Street Life in New York with the Bootblacks. This is a short novel by Horatio Alger Jr., and it was first serialised in some magazine for boys in 1867 before coming out as a book in 1868. I've been wanting to try a Horatio Alger Jr. book since I read about him last year, possibly the year before, thinking if he sold 100 million books, there must be something there. And also, if he sold 100 million books, how did he end up never having any money? And if you've sold 100 million books, how are you so little known now? Admittedly, this is 150 or more years later. But even so, with that sort of level of success at the time, you would expect a little bit more of a footprint than the author actually has. And I think the footprint is there in America, but not there in a literary sense. This book, and from what I hear, a lot of his books, are pure examples of the American dream. That someone can, with luck and pluck, with honest hard graft, make something of themselves. They are necessarily a little bit moralistic. When we first meet Ragged Dick, he is someone who has a good heart, but is a little bit easily led. So the money he makes as a bootblack, and he makes more than most because he has some hustle about him. He has repeat customers. He is an honest chap, but he fritters his money away doing horrible things like smoking, going to the theatre, and gambling. Some people describe his stories as rags to riches, and I can't really agree with that, because he certainly moves from rags, but he doesn't move to riches. He moves to something which is actually more achievable, more realistic, and therefore I think made it a bit more popular at the time. This is not a complete flight of fancy. There is stuff sprinkled into the story to make it more interesting, certainly, but what we have really here is just a story of virtue rewarded. He puts in the hard graft. He helps someone who in turn helps him with an education, and he makes something of himself, but he doesn't become some little Lord Fauntleroy. He just achieves a steady job and a little bit of self-respect. This is a simple story. It is written for adolescents and younger after all. But there are flashes of humour here, and Ragged Dick is a little bit cheeky as well. He's always got a quick comeback. He has the gift of the gab. He is a sort of natural born salesman and thinks on his feet. But there are pieces in the book which are genuinely touching too. And maybe I just needed that, given that some of the things I read this week were absolutely not comforting reads. More on that shortly. But first, something which allowed me to tick off 2 boxes. Not a book, because it's a pulp magazine, and it's also, the category is romance, so I'm using it as category romance without having to read a Mills and Boon book. Ranch Romances, a collection of Western tales. I was very luckily given this in a little aid package of literature from Dave Brzeski last month, and as soon as I saw the word romances, I knew that I was going to be using this for Garbaugust. So what we have is a collection of pulp Western stories, perhaps with a little bit less romance in them than the big romance on the front cover suggests. It's still a fun selection. But here, with Ranch Romances, is where the fun stopped. The next book on my list is certainly not cozy. It's not trash either. It's not really part of Garbaugust, and wasn't even a book. Very rare for me. I have done an audio book. I have Spotify, and you get one a month these days, so I thought I'll start taking advantage of that. So I listened to Nuclear War, a Scenario by Annie Jacobsen, which is hands down the most horrific book I will read this year. Certainly more horrific than anything I read last year. All the more horrific because it is non-fiction. Speculative non-fiction, doubtless, but accurate speculation. The receipts are there. The author has spoken to entirely the right people. If you want a book that will scare you witless, rob you of all your remaining hope, provide to you extreme body horror, and then wrap it up in crushing, unravelable bureaucracy, this is the book for you. As I say, it was absolutely harrowing, and maybe this is why I enjoyed the Horatio Alger maybe more than I would have done, because it gave me something else to cling onto as I was reading that and listening to the audiobook. But Nuclear War, a Scenario, was definitely on brand, if not part of Garbaugust, on brand for the beginning of week 4, Apocalyptic trash. And the next book I read ticked off another square on the Garbingo card of topical trash, Hostage by Colin Mason. Okay, when I say topical, this is 1972, 1973. In any other week, this would have been a very depressing read, the most depressing read. And it should have been. But as I finished Nuclear War Scenario in the same week, it definitely takes a back seat. In Hostage, the Cold War turns hot. There has been major unrest in the Middle East. Topical for topical trash. since 1949. And as a result, some stolen nuclear bombs are let off in a city. Everyone starts blaming everyone else. Everyone starts posturing. And there's only one way that tends towards. We see some people, we see the British Prime Minister, we see a spy on the ground trying to avert the oncoming nuclear war. So, super happy fun times. And as I move into the last week of Garbaugust proper, I've started Domain by James Herbert. So I don't think the laughs are going to increase appreciably. But there we are, apocalyptic trash. What were we expecting? But until next time.